due to a last-minute postponement, and it'll be presented at a future meeting. So just to let you know, the meeting will be recorded, and please mute yourself and raise your hand or turn on your cameras to speak. And then introductions will be done during roll call, just based on abbreviating the meeting as much as possible.
Okay, so we'll go to approval of the meeting minutes. We have two items, 2A and a 2B. For 2A, we have a CTAC and the SANTAC meeting minutes for the March 11th meeting. Well, I think the way we're going to do it is we do one at a time, and the SANTAC staff will do the roll call. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we're going to start with CTAC, and this again is approval for the March 11 meeting minutes, starting with City of Carlsbad.
Tim,
Yes.
Chairman G, can we go through of making a motion first and second it?
My apologies.
Motion Rivera that we approve the March 11th CTAC meeting minutes.
Morgan, County of San Diego, second.
Thank you. You can proceed, Tim,
Thank you. So
with CTAC members.
yes, CTAC members, and for March 11, City of Carlsbad.
So this is Tom Frank. I was not present at that meeting, and I know Hossein Ajide is just logging on, so I'm not sure if he was present or not. Maybe in the minutes it says he was present. If we were not present, we'll abstain.
Thank you. Noted. City of Chula Vista.
Aye, yes.
Thank you. City of Coronado.
Jim Newton here, approve.
Thank you. City of Del Mar. Doesn't look like we have anyone from City of Del Mar. City of El Cajon.
City of El Cajon, abstain.
Thank you. City of Encinitas.
City of Encinitas, abstain.
Thank you. City of Escondido.
It's Greg Williams. I did not attend that meeting, so I'll need to abstain as well.
Okay, thank you. City of Imperial Beach.
Adios, I approve.
Thank you. City of La Mesa.
Bill Kern, aye.
Thank you. City of Lemon Grove.
Yes.
Thank you. City of National City. Doesn't look like we have anyone in attendance. City of Oceanside. City of Poway.
Henry Trang, abstain.
For CTAC, Henry, it's Melody.
Oh, sorry.
I
Sorry.
approve.
Thank you. City of San Marcos.
City of San Marcos, abstain.
Thank you. City of Santee.
Inji may approve.
Thank you. City of Vista.
Sam Hassanen, approve.
Thank you. City of San Diego.
Kerry Chewy, approve.
Thank you. City of Solana Beach.
Solana Beach, I'll abstain.
County of San Diego.
Bill Morgan, County of San Diego, approve.
Thank you. So the CTAC minutes are now approved or on the side. SANTAC for March 11.
Tim, I believe for CTAC, we should have to go with MTS and NCTD.
Oh, my apologies. So NCTD. Looks like no one is in attendance.
Looks like they were both absent.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess before we proceed to the Santec minutes, I first want to apologize. I jumped the gun a little bit. Yeah, I want to entertain a motion for the Santec meeting minutes. If you do need a couple of minutes to review, please let me know as well. So otherwise, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
We have a motion to approve by Mike James. Do I hear a second?
Jim Greenstein, City Solana Beach, I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So please, Santec staff can proceed with the roll call for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So we'll start with Caltrans.
Hi, Brian Miller here in for Melina Pereira. I abstain.
Thank you. City of Carlsbad.
This is Tom Frank sitting in for John Kim, and I will abstain.
Noted, thank you. The City of Chula Vista.
Oliver Bauer, City of Chula Vista, I'll abstain as well.
Thank you. City of Coronado.
Jim Newton, approve.
Thank you. City of Del Mar. Doesn't look like we have anyone present. City of El Cajon.
Yasmin Arellano, abstain.
Thank you. City of Encinitas.
Encinitas, abstain.
Thank you. City of Escondido.
Abstain.
Thank you. City of Imperial Beach. I received a note that City of Imperial Beach will not be able to attend this meeting. City of La Mesa.
Bill Kern, abstain.
Thank you. City of Lemon Grove.
Yes.
Thank you.
It took a while.
City of National City.
Like rolled over into the new fiscal year. That's kind of what it took a little bit of time.
City of Oceanside.
Yes.
City of Poway.
Henry Trang, abstain.
City of San Diego.
Duncan Hughes, City of San Diego, abstain.
Thank you. City of San Marcos. City of Santee.
Benjamin, approve.
Thank you. City of Solana Beach.
Jim Greenstein, City of Solana Beach, approve.
Thank you. City of Vista.
Sam Hassanen, approve.
Thank you. County of San Diego. NCTV. And finally, MTS.
Dennis Desmond, MTS, abstain.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. So moving on to item 2B for the approval of CTAC meeting minutes for the May 20th meeting. If you need some time to review, please let me know. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
I have a question about that. Is that, I think I heard that it's only CTAC approving those minutes?
It's only CTAC, yes.
Is that, I thought it was a joint meeting, right?
I believe that was the Santec meeting, the minutes was approved, I believe. Is that the case?
So just to clarify, the reason it's only CTAC because it was a joint meeting, but remember we only got a quorum for CTAC members and all other members participated just as agency members, regular. So technically it's only a CTAC approval.
Got it. And then if I attended, 'cause I represent both CTAC and Centec, even though the CTAC city representative was at this meeting, can I vote on his behalf to approve?
Yeah, just send us an email confirming that you as a representative for this particular meeting, you're serving as a representative.
Okay, and then just one last comment. Looks like the date might be wrong on the roster, where it says the confirmed attendance, that list says March 11th. I think it should say
So
May 10th.
chair will take that as a, part of the review and subject to that change. So we could seek, go through the voting process, Chair.
Yes. So any other comments from members? If not, we'll entertain a motion for the minutes as amended.
Minji, this is Melody from Poway. I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Melody.
I'll second, Mike James.
Thank you, Mike. So we'll have a motion and a second. So please go ahead for the approval process.
Thank you. So we'll start with CTAC, City of Carlsbad.
Tom Frank, abstain.
Thank you. City of Chula Vista.
Frank Rivera, yes, approve as amended.
Thank you. City of Coronado.
Jim Newton, abstain.
Thank you. City of Del Mar. City of El Cajon.
Excuse me, say it again.
City of El Cajon for CTAC.
For CTAC, Yasmin Arellano, abstain.
Thank you. City of Encinitas.
City of Encinitas, abstain.
Thank you. City of Escondido.
City of Escondido, approve.
Thank you. City of Imperial Beach. Right. City of La Mesa.
Phil Kern, approve.
Thank you. City of Lemon Grove.
Yes.
Thank you. City of National City. Absent. City of Oceanside. City of Poway.
Yes.
Oh, my apologies.
Was that Hamid from City
Hamid.
of Oceanside, and then James, Mike James? You capture that, Tim?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
City of Poway.
Melody, approved.
Thank you. City of San Marcos.
San Marcos abstains.
Thank you. City of Santee.
Yuji may approve.
Thank you. City of Vista.
Tom Hassan, approve.
Thank you. City of San Diego.
Gary Dewey, approve.
Thank you. City of Solana Beach.
Solana Beach, I'll abstain.
Thank you. County of San Diego.
Bill Morgan, approve.
Thank you. NCTV. And MTS.
Dennis Desmond, abstain.
Thank you. Chair.
Okay, thank you for all the members and the Sandex staff for the approval of the meeting minutes. Now I turn it around to Melody.
All right, thank you. This next item is for public comment. Members of the public have the opportunity to address CTAC and Centec on any issue within the jurisdiction of Sandag that's not on the agenda. And if we do have any items not on the agenda that the members or the public would like to speak about at this time, we ask that you keep it to 2 to 3 minutes each. Not seeing any unmutes.
Vice Chair, I'm going through the list and I do not see any hands raised. But if somebody, the members want to speak, please turn on your camera as well in case we missed anything.
Can I also just do a reminder that everyone that's not intending to speak can mute, just so that we don't get feedback? Thank you.
Vice Chair, I don't see any hands raised or any cameras turned on.
Thanks. Minji, you got the next one?
Yes, thank you. Item number 4, we have an update from SANDAG staff, comprehensive multimodal corridor plan program review. We'll turn that to Rachel.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you for providing me with some time to give an update on the comprehensive multimodal corridor plans. I know a number of you have been participating with the 5 corridors that are currently, corridor plans that are currently underway. But was hoping to provide a little bit of an update and some information for those of you who may not be quite as familiar with this effort that's underway. So next slide, please. So comprehensive multimodal corridor plans are a newer concept that was developed by the state of California, and they ask for agencies such as SANDAG or Caltrans to take a look at specific corridors from a multimodal perspective. They're aligned with state goals and help to make SANDAG and Caltrans eligible for certain types of state Senate Bill 1 funds, as well as making us more competitive for state and federal funding. And these plans help to detail out some of the higher level projects that are included in the regional plan. Next slide, please. So this slide here shows the complete corridor concept, which is one of the 5 big moves from the 2021 regional plan. And the comprehensive multimodal corridor plans basically take this complete corridor concept and help to detail it out for the geographies that are being studied in the plan. Here on the image, if we move from left to right, you can see a variety of different transportation components. On the left-hand side, you see a highway that has dynamic lanes that can be changed for different users throughout the day, depending on the level of travelers, or if there's an incident that occurs on the roadway. There can be lanes for carpoolers, transit, in the future connected vehicles, general traffic, or lanes that can be assigned for emergency responders if there is an incident. Looking towards the middle of the photo, you see that there's high-speed transit located underground, offering people a competitive and easy way to get to major destinations in the region. On top of that, you see a bike path for active transportation and wide sidewalks that connect to local bus service, as well as neighborhood electric vehicles and private vehicles also using the roadway that's on the right. If you go to the next slide, please. So the California Transportation Commission has developed guidelines for agencies to use when developing these corridor plans. And there's a number of different elements that we need to take into consideration during the plan. As I noted earlier, these are multimodal, so it's not just looking at cars and transit, but also active transportation and micromobility. Looking to improve access to affordable housing, making sure that we're providing travel opportunities for low-income and disadvantaged communities, helping to improve air quality and reduce greenhouse gases, and improving system operations and congestion relief. Next slide, please. So this map here shows the 5 corridor plans that are currently underway, and I know a number of you have been part of our project teams and helping to provide input, and we really appreciate that through this process. Looking at the map from top to bottom, on the first corridor you see in yellow at the top is the North County corridor, and that includes 78 between I-5 and I-15, as well as a portion of State Route 76 nearer to the coast. It includes the Sprinter line and a number of major roadways within the area, such as Palmer Airport Road, and local roadways and active transportation in that area as well. In orange, you see the San Vicente corridor, and that includes State Route 67 between Ramona and Lakeside, and the local roadway connections that are in that area as well as active transportation. And in this corridor, that also includes equestrian trails. In green, you see the Coast Canyons and Trails corridor, kind of in the middle of the region, and that goes along the State Route 52 corridor between La Jolla all the way out to where State Route 52 ends, and includes the freeway portion of State Route 67, as well as portions of the trolley and local roadways. In dark blue, you see the Central Mobility Hub and Connections corridor, which is in the area around San Diego International Airport. It also includes portions of Point Loma, the Midway community in San Diego, and downtown San Diego. And then our last and largest corridor is shown in purple, and that's the South Beta Sorrento corridor that includes the southern part of I-5, 805, as well as the Blue Line trolley and what's known as the Purple Line trolley, which would be a future rail line. Next slide, please. In addition to the 5 corridors that we currently have underway, the Board of Directors allocated funding to do corridor plans for another 6 corridors. So here we have kind of a buffer map as these corridor plans aren't yet underway. So we'll be working with the teams when those get started to further define the map limits, a little more similar to what you saw on the first map. But there are also plans to do multimodal corridor plans for transit and local roadways surrounding and including the I-15, State Route 56, I-8, and that's a corridor plan that we will be kicking off this year, as well as State Route 94, and that's also one we anticipate to start later this year. State Route 125, and then airport to airport connection, which looks at connections between San Diego International Airport and the Cross Border Express facility that provides access to the airport in Tijuana. Next slide. So here's a graphic that we have, and many of the elements that I'll share with you today are also included on our SANDAG CMCP webpage. And this just talks a little bit sort of about the steps that are used in developing the corridor plans. First, the teams take a look at the individual corridor, trying to understand where people are traveling from, and 2, how people are using the corridor, major destinations. All the teams took a look at existing travel data as well as demographic data for their corridors. Next, we analyze the performance gaps and opportunities for improving travel within those corridors. Next, we look at developing transportation strategies, or what the corridor plans usually refer to as transportation solutions. And these are projects, programs, policies that can help to improve mobility. And we have been we do seek public input during the development of these strategies as well. And then ultimately we'll be developing both draft plans that we'll be putting out for public comment, and then final plans that note information about all these different projects and programs. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, these quarter plans are multimodal. So this slide here just notes some of the different modes that are being considered in the development of these plans. Rapid and local bus, rail, bikeways, pedestrian pathways, highways, and freeways. Connecting local roads, rideables. So these can be things like scooters, for example. So it's not looking just at one particular element of transportation, but how all these different pieces can come together to offer more seamless travel for people. Next slide, please. So with the 5 quarters that we have underway, each of them are on a little bit of their own schedule, but this kind of provides a general overview. We gathered data and did some initial stakeholder outreach last year. The teams are working now on developing their transportation solution assessment, starting to look at different projects or elements that could be included in their quarter plans. We will be using our SANDAG activity-based model as the teams put together these different packages of transportation improvements. We'll be running them through our model to get some data back on elements like mode share or greenhouse gas reductions, access to jobs that these different projects would provide for those geographies that we shared on the map. And then later this year, the teams will be developing their draft and final plans. The next slide, please. So each of the teams has developed a virtual engagement hub, and we're using a newer tool to SANDAG, Social Pinpoint, for these. I'll have a slide at the end that has information on where you can access this information, but if you haven't had a chance yet to take a look at the virtual engagement hub for the corridor that is in your part of the region, I would encourage you to do so. Each of the teams has developed a survey to seek some additional information and input from the public and stakeholders about how they're using the corridor, how they might like to use the corridor in the future. We have interactive maps, and we also have a tutorial video both in English and Spanish that shows you how you can put pins on the map. And we have I'll have another slide in just a moment that shows an image from the maps, but you can drop different pins for roadway comments or active transportation comments, and then type in your comments. So folks have been using that to let us know if there's areas that might be missing sidewalks or someplace they think would be helpful to have a bus stop in the future. Comments of where maybe biking doesn't feel very safe to them. So we've been getting some really good feedback on different ideas that people have, and you can put them right on the spot on the map where you think that idea would be helpful. And then we also have the general comment form on all of the web pages as well, so folks can give more generalized feedback if the map isn't a good format for you. So if we go to the next slide. Here's just an example. This one is from the Central Mobility Hub. It's just a screenshot here, but you can see there's a number of pins on the map, and as you zoom in, there's, they kind of expand some of them, and you can click on each of those, and the public can see this too. So you can see what other people, what other ideas folks have, or what input, your neighbors or others might be giving on some of these different areas. And both the tool, the map, and the video are available both in English and in Spanish. Next slide, please. So here's some information on how you can connect with us on the quarter plans. As I mentioned earlier, we have a web page, a general CMCP web page, and then individual pages for each of the project teams that are underway. And we also have a text hotline. Folks can send emails or leave voicemails with ideas, and then some information on our social media and also my email contact. So thank you for providing some time this morning to share the information, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Is there any questions for Rachel?
One quick question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you. Wonderful presentation. We've been fortunate to work with Karine and in Caltrans and Edgar at Kimberly Horn, a wonderful team, and they've been very cooperative. When do you anticipate the draft project lists for each of these CMCP areas to be presented to the staff? And I do hope that they are shared with the staff for comments and finalization of the project list and at least local priorities before they're made public. When do you think that will happen?
Yeah, so it varies a bit from team to team. I know the North County team, which is the one that you've been participating in, is working right now on developing their different transportation solution ideas. So I think over the next few weeks, they're kind of looking at the different modes and the ideas that they're coming up with there. So I don't have an exact date for you on the list, but I believe they should be sharing them with the jurisdictions and the folks who've been participating in their project study team first before it's shared more widely with the public.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, any other comments?
Rachel, if any of the members have a comment to one of the CMCPs, can I just forward those to you and then you'll get them to the appropriate staff?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Seeing none, that concludes this item. Thank you, Rachel.
This is Tom Frank. I just sent a link to the to an air quality control board flyer regarding roundabouts. And we're in the North County corridor, and we made this comment on many of the workshops we've had to date. But considering some of the principles and objectives of the 5 big moves, we think that in line with the reference I just sent, that implementing policies to promote the implementation of roundabouts at interchanges and complete streets corridors would meet many of the objectives of the 5 big moves. 2 being to reduce greenhouse gases, and the second to go towards the vision of Vision Zero. So just wanted to share that with the group. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. I'll take a look at the resource and can share it with the teams. With all of the teams, we have a regular meeting with the project managers from the 5 corridors that are underway, and we like to pull together different resources to share with them. So I'll take a look at that and share that with the team. Thanks.
Okay, I don't see any more comments at this moment. So thank you, Rachel. I'll turn that over to Melody.
Great, thanks, Minji.
Hey, Minji, oh, sorry, Minji, you're mute. I'm not hearing you well, so you might check your mic. Sorry, Melody.
That's okay, thanks, Tom. Our next item on the agenda is the advancement of working groups restructuring. As part of SANDAG's overall work plan, SANDAG staff has undertaken an effort to assess the current state of working group structures. This item is a follow-up to the May 2021 meeting discussion, and will specifically focus on presenting a work plan to carry out proposed restructuring efforts and next steps. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alex.
Perfect. Thank you, Melody. We're coming back to all of you at this July meeting, and just kind of a background and history on this. If you recall, we started the discussion on this effort sometime, I believe, middle last year, and through that process, we've been working through the development of a number of recommendations. Tim's going to run the slide deck for me, so I'll just tell him when to switch it. But basically, the initial effort, if you recall, was have a focused discussion on obtaining some input from CTAC and SANTAC members, really regarding the current state of the level of discussion and value that we serve, we meaning SANDAG, and then you serve to us as well through these existing working group structures. Through this process, we recognize that both working groups have decades-long histories and serving as an advisory capacity to the Transportation Committee. But really, and one of the things that we addressed early on is really the roles and responsibilities of these working groups has really shifted priorities. and they change over time. So really, the current structure, along with the growing sense of really the purpose of identity and kind of resulting in declining level of discussion for more, that kind of resulted in more informational items as opposed to input items, really provided kind of a lack of, I would say, focused discussions, and the fact that COVID hit us, it kind of only elevated those I would say, that purpose, because then we were really struggling for agenda items. We were just mainly presenting discussions, more informational matter. So really the value that these groups kind of, again, because of things have changed over the past years, kind of prompted the discussion to start thinking about can we restructure so we could SANDAG, and then you guys also, CTAC and SANTAG members, local agencies, gain the value. If you go to the next slide. So really high level, so what I will be presenting to you is kind of what you'd be seeing as an initial recommendations work plan to get some concurrence so we could proceed forward. But here's really kind of an overview of the timeline and things that we presented in the past. For example, we went through some initial discovery phase early on, leading into, I believe, early this year, where we did some literature review, we did some outreach with our NPOs. We also were in discussions with our council in terms of the structure and what would it require for this restructuring, changing the charter, and what would it take, and then, but also at the same time getting input along the way to making sure that as we proceed forward, that the value that however this restructure comes about is still, we do provide that value, recognizing that things have changed. So we're here today, step number 2, we're going to provide some recommendations, and then the idea here is that staff is going to go off and then come back in the next months and then proposed and kind of maybe a draft charter based on some themes that I'm going to be presenting today. And ultimately, we're going to seek approval from the appropriate management and also our policy advisory committees. Next slide, Tim, please. So in my introductory remarks, I kind of talk about this, but these are kind of more, I would say, explicit, some of the things that we heard along the way. And in terms of the challenges and why we're undertaking this effort. Obviously, as mentioned, there's been the charters are really kind of, I would say, outdated, to be frank. For example, I'm more familiar with the CTAC charter. It references kind of the local streets and road program elements, and we recognize that it's kind of, at that time, was kind of restructured because of Transnet. So things have changed and things are going to change. So we want to make sure that we're prepared. And the amount of discussions on the second bullets, I'm not going to go through all of them, but for example, on the CTAC side, we have kind of the ongoing efforts, it's been limited to local streets and really focus on kind of the regional arterial management system, which, it's value to all of you and us, but at the same time, it's something that we are evolving to improve or change over time. Other things here that we've kind of really came to the forefront or were elevated was during the COVID, is that in the past, obviously when we had the face-to-face meetings, we would have an item on the CTAC and we would have also the same item on SANTAG. So there was some level of redundancy. And to some extent, a lot of I would say about 60% of the members are almost the same members as SANTAG. So there's some efficiencies there. And then the other thing that we heard from all of you was that one of the values that these venues provided, and so this is something that we want to continue or restructure to make sure we actually move on, that was the fact that we're subject to the Brown Act, level of discussion in terms of technology or tools, technical tools or approaches or anything like that, was really limited to maybe bringing an item if it was sponsored from a local agency. And we recognize that technology is evolving, so there's a lot of interest in examining. So we were really limited to, hey, if we want to bring somebody on board so we could learn from them, it was really limited to what the local agency is doing, as opposed to kind of doing a shared best practices. And that's mainly because we were Brown Acts, because if we open up the door for one, then we would have to open it to other vendors or the focused areas. But the proposed approach, I think that's something that we consider, and we could seek a platform where we would do this, not necessarily in the Brown Act sort of context, but rather working through a task force or working outside of the current structure, subject to the changes if we seek that, to actually provide that value, because we're interested as well. So I'm sure you guys are all interested as well. Next slide, please. So with that, the work plan is focused really on, at least initially, on 4 themes and recommendations. And I'm going to go through each in more detail, but the first one is obviously things have changed, roles have changed in light of the 5 big moves, in light of all of your local agencies sort of transportation themes have changed as well, or programs. We're thinking of and want to get your input of really kind of moving forward to how do we restructure ourselves to expand membership for other transportation disciplines. We know there's a lot of emphasis, for example, on technology, smart cities, active transportation, even though we have an active transportation group, and we presented this active transportation group at a past joint meeting. So that's something to consider. The other one is want to highlight, for example, some of these focused areas, projects or programs that really underpin this restructuring, because as I mentioned earlier, the charters focus on specific projects or programs that really kind of developed 10 years ago. So I want to highlight some of those focused areas, and if there's any insight or additional comments, we could discuss that. And then also the subject of meeting frequencies. Again, do we need to meet every month? Could it be maybe a restructuring where we meet every other month, but then have specific focus areas, task forces developed, which are not subject to the Brown Act. And maybe those are meet depending on the subject area monthly. But anyway, it gives us that greater flexibility. Working with all of you and your teams and your agencies, it could be that one specific subject area for a specific month or that biweekly month, that if there's an interest, then you can invite other folks from your agency, depending on the composition. Ultimately, what I would like to do then is take your input today, get concurrence today, but then get your input today, and then develop a draft charter and present it at a future meeting. That'll kind of set the foundation. And obviously there'll be ongoing discussions on how do we execute that, but the idea is to kind of present that initially. Next slide, Tim. So for example, for the first recommendation is, these are, I kind of mentioned some of these evolving disciplines or disciplines that we want to expand that membership for this new working group restructure. Obviously, we'll continue to work with all of you, the engineers, public works, and traffic or transportation engineering. But there's also an emphasis by local agencies where they have mobility departments now. They're looking at active transportation or smart cities. And some agencies, for example, I know the city of Chula Vista, or other agencies too, that have innovation departments, so see technology officers. So the idea here is really kind of focused on making sure that we really kind of shift the culture in terms of we understand that transportation is capital, and it's working with the city engineers, the traffic engineer, public works, but it's also evolving to new themes. How do we provide mobility choices? How do we integrate and really focus on the advancements of technology? And again, it's what value can we provide to all of you, but at the same time, what value can you all provide to us from a sense of providing guidance? Because we know that technology, in fact, is a key foundation for the 5 big moves as we start implementing regional plan initiatives. Next slide, please. And then, for example, just some of the focus areas of programs. I mean, we will still continue. There's still a focus on local streets, but some of the bread and butter components, for example, on the 5 big moves, there's this, one of the things that you all have been presented with in past meetings, our team developed a smart intersection curb management ConOps. So we're heading in that direction. And obviously, one of the discussions that you'll be hearing about today is this TISMO effort. But there's other elements here, as you can see here. How do we, again, it's reflected on how to expanding the membership, but also the disciplines and the focused areas. I know they get all of you are doing your climate action plan. So how do we develop that relationship and make sure that from a transportation, we have that focused areas to help advance this new restructuring, but also provide value to all of you, and at the same time provide value in advisory matter to SANDAG for moving these concepts forward. Next slide, please. And here's kind of just to highlight, for example, that this last piece here is we have I'm just highlighting both the CTAC and SANTAC and snapshot. But things that we would do, based on the input today in concurrence, then, I would work with staff to kind of develop a revised charter, or I'm still working with council whether this would be considered a revised charter or a new charter developing on I would say the execution of this process. But either way, it'll be a charter, it'll be a purpose to align with, current state committee line of reporting will essentially be the same, because we are essentially CTAC reports to the TC and SANTAC reports to CTAC, but there's a focus areas there, or component there, responsibilities, and then membership, and then the meeting. Again, the meeting at this time would be, if you guys are okay with it, maybe every other month. And then just kind of the composition of the chair and all of that. So a lot of those execution or details come back and present to all of you at a future meeting, so we could continue with this work plan implementation. Next slide, please. And here's just kind of a timeline of this effort. So for today, for example, I'm presenting kind of the concurrence on these work plan areas, the composition, the focused areas, the meeting frequencies, and ultimately take a lot of the information today, and then we'll go back and then break that down into a more detail into a charter, and then present the draft charter. But one of the things too that I want to get insight today, if possible, on the composition component, so then we could also present some recommendation, is the agency participation structure. Obviously, if we're going to span the disciplines and believe that we still have to, if it's specific members, how do we kind of think about whether maybe there's a one agency representative to just for quorum, or 2 or 3 but then at the same time it'll be expanded to all your agency folks that are that were included those other disciplines. So any thoughts to that? And then we essentially move forward with the recommendation to SANDAG management and to our policy advisory committee in the fall. So with that, the next slide is really kind of summarizing what I would like to kind of initiate the discussion today. And then we could, if you like, we have plenty of time. If we could take 5 minutes or a couple minutes for each of the recommendations, if you guys have any thoughts. But anyway, Tim, if you could just go back to maybe the composition slide, and then I'll open up for member discussions, and we're available to answer any questions, and turn it back to you, Vice Chair Melody.
Thanks, Alex. Does anybody have anything they want to share or comment on?
Hi, Melody. I'll comment. I actually I think we just got the packet, or the agenda packet, a couple of days ago, so I haven't had much time to review it and, basically come up with some recommendations at this point. But the presentation, I guess the issues make sense, and I don't have any, I guess, specific comments on what was presented right now, but I probably would within a week or so. So I'd say continue as presented, and when the next level draft comes up, I think we might be able to hopefully get more time to review it and provide more comments. Thank you.
And I'm sure you could email any comments you have over to Alex as well.
Yeah, thank you.
And Thomas, if you could just go back to, Tim, can you go back to the previous slide? There's, let's go. I mean, these additional slides provide the more insight, but it's really focused any comments on, there you go, on these 3 focused areas. And then the additional slides just kind of provide some insight. So that'd be great if I could get comments. But overall, the idea here is to get any comments, and then we would take that and then come back to all of you at a future meeting and use that as the substance for a proposed draft charter.
Alex, you are recommending that we still have two separate groups. We're just, because we've continued to have these joint meetings, we would maybe try to align staff that's attending both, or is that what you mean by group composition? And
Yeah,
representation?
what I'm recommending is because it's to really restructure and not have two separate groups.
Okay.
And the idea here is if through that restructuring process, we want to make sure that the composition is appropriate to make sure you guys get value, but at the same time that Sandag also gets value in advance and recognizing that there's, you know, the transportation field is changing.
Okay.
So Alex, if I could comment,
Right.
when we've had these previous discussions, I think we've always talked about continuing two separate groups. And so I'm a little concerned. I understand the importance of maybe some, you know, the groups might be a little more fluid, but I'm concerned that I think that we have a group that really needs to be able to develop a work plan and be able to understand what kind of feedback they might need from Santec on the more detailed studies. And then we have our, you know, our great thinkers on Santec who can really advise us on the details. And so I'm concerned about creating one group because I think that we have different folks with different expertise. And I think that the structure of having a more formal board that is an advisory board that is advised by a less formal think tank type group is something that is necessary. And I think when we had these discussions in the past, I'd always understood that we would continue to have two groups and maybe even more groups, committees, subcommittees, that sort of thing. So creating everybody in one bin or basket, I think you start to lose the efficiencies of what we have now.
And let me clarify, Julie, your belief, and you're absolutely right. And maybe I didn't do justice, but this would be that formal advisory larger group. And all I'm suggesting is to include and expand the disciplines. Okay. But, and I should have mentioned this, but there would be additional task forces developed to work on the details, so that we still continue to have the more focused areas, whether it's development of ConOps, development, talking about TISMO, talking about technology. So we would still continue to have those, but those would be more strategic.
Alex?
Talking about, and so we still continue to have these two groups structured, Julie, but this would be that larger, but all I'm suggesting, have that larger group to provide that recommendations to the TC, but I'm asking to expand the composition.
Alex?
Does
I have a question? Can you hear me, Alex?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on what Julie said. I'm thinking about this, and I am also listening to what you're saying. I concur with what Julie said, that if you throw apples and oranges and plums and pears into a basket, you're not going to get a fruit salad. You're going to just get some confusion. The 7 disciplines that you're showing on the slide, quite frankly, they don't even belong in the same group together. They may seem to be related. Some of them, I can see some connections, but we have connections between pretty much all disciplines in all fields of engineering, science, technology, and all that. Just because there are overlaps and areas of common interest, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be sitting in there for 3 hours listening to a technology innovation that, quite frankly, is not of my concern. Doesn't help me with doing my job. And I have really nothing even remotely intelligent to contribute to that discussion because I'm not knowledgeable in that area. And the same way that I don't think that, like, I don't know, smart cities guy may not have something to say with the mobility department. We all have opinions. I can talk about nuclear disarmament also, but that doesn't make me an expert. So that's what I'm saying, that if we throw all these disciplines into a big basket, you really are not going to get, actually, if your concern to begin with was lack of interest and lack of participation, you may get even more of that. Because I'm looking at these things and I'm saying, yeah, you know, I know a little bit about every part of these disciplines, but I'm no expert and I'm not really interested. So that's why I'm thinking, you know, I understand you're trying to consolidate and have only one group reporting to the transportation committee, but I don't know how realistically you're going to do it, except, you know, if what you're saying, you're going to have task forces and you're going to have subcommittees and some groups, and then who's going to be organizing and staffing and putting agendas and running those groups? So you may get back to where we started. You were trying to get away from having two committees, and now you may end up with a super committee that most of the people are not going to participate because the agenda is so long and so diverse that doesn't interest any specific group. And then if you want to divide this into task forces and subcommittees and groups and focus groups, then you're going to end up with even more meetings. And who's going to be agendizing those meetings, scheduling those meetings, running those meetings? Each of those meetings are going to, each of those task forces and committees, now they're going to need to have their own chair and their own staff and all that. So I don't know. I'm still thinking about this. And I think, like Frank was the one who said that I need more time to think, to absorb this. But my gut reaction is that if the direction is to reduce, the way I see it is you want to reduce the number of meetings. I don't know if this will go, if this is going to do that. If you're going to have 7 different disciplines and then you're going to end up with 7 different task forces and groups and subcommittees, you're going to end up with more meetings. And second, if your focus was to promote attendance and participation, I don't know if by expanding the membership of a super committee, so-called super committee, and having so many different topics, if it's going to help. Because I, for one, I'm looking at these and I'm saying, okay, if you want to appease everyone and you want to put like 7 different agenda items, I'm going to be interested only in 1 or 2. Why am I going to this meeting? They're going to talk about what Google is doing. I don't care what Google is doing. That doesn't affect my job. It's interesting to know, but am I really interested, or am I expert enough to contribute? So again, these are my initial reactions. I kind of following what Julie was saying and what Frank was saying. If the goal is to consolidate, I'm not sure if it's going to help, because you're also at the same time proposing to have task forces and subcommittees of the super group. And also, if the goal is to promote attendance, contributions, and attention, I'm not sure if diversification of a super committee is going to help in that regard. I'm just going to stop now, just share some thoughts on my first reaction to it.
Yeah, let me respond, because I thank you for the comment, Hamid, and I respect your comments. But the idea here is that, going back to the initial discussions, the charters for both working groups are outdated. They're essentially really kind of focused on transportation elements that have been in place for decades. I mean, but within that context, there is so when we started this process, how do we update those charters, but with an eye of making sure that the themes or the subject areas are relevant to the transportation field right now. Now, I disagree with you that, yeah, I'm not combining, I'm just saying that whether we do have a structure where we have this larger group with these additional disciplines, and then as we develop, and if we go on a month-to-month basis or bi-weekly, monthly, if we have an item that speaks to public works related elements, we'll put those in the agenda. And then if all of you guys are interested, but if it's transportation related to new technology, that's the value that we're trying to be. Now, if the integration or bringing the Santec working group, we're doing this in a way where we want to make sure it's with purpose. We just don't want to proceed with saying, oh yeah, let's just combine these committees and we continue with the old structure and formal discussion points that we've had in the past. And to be frank with you, what we heard from all of you is that we just have limited our ability, because of the old structure, because of Brown Act, that we're limited to these items where we can't even present new technology elements that will provide value not only to you, but to other departments in your agency. Now, as we proceeded with those discussions, we wanted to make sure that, because at least, and this is where I totally disagree with you, I mean, transportation is not just public works and city traffic engineers now. It's active, it's mobility. So within our context here is that if we're going to proceed and reinvent the restructuring, then we need to consider all these other elements. Now, how we address or how to bring up the discussions, it could be through task force, and the task force can meet, again, subject to specific projects monthly, but then it's focused on a specific area. And it could be you, it could be somebody else from your staff or somebody else from your local agency, but that's the idea, to provide that. And task force is not subject to Brown Act. Don't worry about the meetings, we'll deal with that. And that's why we're presenting that. The execution of that process, we'll worry about that ourselves. But what we're suggesting is that at least for this larger group, this larger composition, expand the composition, but then as we develop the agenda items, if it's more on the public works, capital CIP type of things, then you'll see the agenda. It has nothing to do with technology, that particular, so nobody on the technology side. But we, again, I disagree with you. To me, transportation, mobility has changed, and it's all predicated on technology. From the planning, development, execution, ultimately through your CIP, through your public works directors, then ultimately your city engineers and the implementation. So there is some relationship. And all we're just trying to say, set the foundation. So when we bring items up, it could be that, like, again, one particular item, it's all about active transportation, and maybe you don't have to be there, but it's a transportation mobility group or restructuring.
Well,
discussion.
Thank you, Alex. I really appreciate it. Like in that regard, in each city is structured differently. And for example, active transportation in Oceanside is part of my group, reports to me. And so I have no problem in those areas. All that I'm saying is that the direction, but I'm keeping an open mind and see how these things are going to go. One of the challenges, and I understand you form a task force, then you don't have to go with Brown Act and you can do whatever you want. And that gives flexibility, which is really good. But one of the things that if you go down this route, I would like to recommend that then the agendas at least be shared with the group members much earlier than the 72-hour Brown Act requirement. So because if this is going to be a diverse agenda and it's going to give us some time to even, first of all, do some thinking and then do some inner coordination in the organization. Because if you're going to go to do cross-discipline kind of agenda, then it helps the CTAC members and SANTAC members to know, okay, this is coming up next week on the agenda. I need to reach out to such and such person in my organization. It's not my only, it's not my own department only, it affects other people. Anyways, I'm going to stop. I think I've talked too much. I know time's scarce. Thank you. A very, very interesting approach. I'm supportive, just sharing some thoughts, and we'll see how it goes. Thank you.
Alex, if I might jump in, I understand your request to update the charters, and to me, your comments make sense. It might be helpful for you to send like a red line or a draft. I looked through the agenda packet and I didn't see anything, and your presentation makes sense to me. So if you could maybe send out to the group like what your red line draft is as a starting point, and then we can comment on it. I think that might further discussion.
I'm gonna note it, Thomas, and I just want to get your initial reaction so that we can start drafting up and start working on that. Correct.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, with the mobility is changing at such a quick rate. I mean, it's super exciting. So, and obviously the 5 big moves is you know, a big transformation, right? It's changing the whole paradigm. So I understand what you're trying to do, and I understand the comments we heard from others. And I think with the working group, like you said, if there's a subject and certain people like traffic engineers or technology managers don't need to attend, they won't. But I think I understand what you're getting at, and there's a lot to discuss. So regarding like state laws with VMT and the future of state laws regarding the freeway alignments and things like that. So yeah, I think it might just help our conversation just to get the drafts in front of us, what you're thinking, and that way it'll limit our discussion on the matter.
And Alex, if I might have my opinion of the whole thing is, you know, from a large city to a small city, we're organized very differently. So like, I don't have in the city of Poway all of these different categories, right? We have a public works director and a city engineer, and I cover traffic, which I have 0 staff in. So I have a consultant that does that. So for me, being able to combine the meeting and the amount of staff that's involved in all the different things really is a helpful item, because then I'm not spread so thin attending multiple meetings or having someone else cover me and then fill in for me on these things. And so it might be that the public works director could come to a meeting that was related to, you know, items specifically for them that they're interested in. That would be great. But you know, Hamid's point about putting out the agenda sooner, because, you know, he is not going to have a 3-hour meeting or 2-hour meeting on his calendar once a month and just necessarily be able to attend if he doesn't know what's going to be on it. So I think that's a valid point than the 72 hours as well.
Alex,
sorry, I have a quick comment. Yeah, I think that when we have the next step, we would want to dedicate more time to have members, you know, time to discuss this item, because this is going to take a lot of discussion. So the next time we'll probably dedicate like 30, maybe 45 minutes for this item. Thanks.
and Alex, if I might, I think to your point, as far as, at least from my perspective, you know, on your composition and representation, I don't know that I feel that chief technology and innovation officers that are coming in and people who are working in the smart city kind of components mesh well. At least that's my initial reaction to it. As far as composition, I agree that the charter is out of date and it's likely to, we need to broaden up with what is going on with the regional plan, the 5 big moves. I think if you're seeking to broaden this group's breadth, I think that to me is a bit far beyond what I'm kind of comfortable with. But I do agree there might need to be additional mobility items in there. And to that effect, I might suggest that we also look at the idea of transportation planners getting involved for cities that might have those, or people that might do that work for us. I think that's a more common position, maybe. So I just think those would be things, at least from my perspective, that you might consider. I do think it is important when we get that draft of that charter that we understand what the breadth of the charter is, because broadening it up too much will, I think, start to do what Julie and Hamid are concerned with, is making it too broad and making this ineffective. But at the same time, we don't want, I think the problem right now with the charter is it's too narrow and it's outdated. So there is a balance to be struck. I truly believe there is a balance there. And I do agree that potentially working groups would be helpful, but I'd like to see as well what you present us with.
And I just wanted to add that I support Melody's comments. If you think about the makeup of the different agencies in the county, besides the county of San Diego and the city of San Diego, most of the mobility items are covered by 1 or 2 people in the public works group or the city as a whole. So I completely support Melody's comments. I think it would help many cities to consolidate where we can.
Okay. So what we'll do is send the slide deck over. If you guys could just give me, we've captured obviously some notes here, some comments, and we are going to be like Isaac and Thomas, and we're going to start drafting a charter. And the idea here is I got to go back to the timeline in terms of what we want to present, and just maybe have something available either next month or in September. So then we have more of that insight in terms of what the composition and really kind of the more detailed information to execute this work plan.
Alex, just one thought to share with you. I think in drafting the new charter, it helps a lot if you identify the goal of this larger group or the new committee. That helps a lot. What is it that is being achieved through this group? What is the goal? Is it the communication between different localities, communication between SANDAG and locals, feedback from locals to SANDAG, information sharing, good, the combination of all of those, that maybe some prioritization also, that can help kind of charter the charter.
The discussion.
Yeah, the discussion. Just a thought. Thank you.
Okay, definitely. It'll have its purpose and its goals. And
I just want to say, I think we're running short on time if we want to move on to the next item and have anyone send you additional comments via email.
please, yes.
Okay, moving on to the next item. There's a slight change to the agenda. Item number 6, the regional digital equity strategy and the regional fiber sharing has been postponed. So I will introduce item number 7. It's going to be an update for the advancement of the regional TISMO activities by SANDAG staff. Tim? Tim, are you ready?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So good morning, everyone. This agenda item, will be focusing on the Transportation Systems Management and Operation Plan. It is a follow-up to the May 20 meeting that we had that introduced TISMO. And during this item, we'll go actually more into details on some of the key action items that were identified as part of the TISMO plan. And we would like to also, ask for your input and guidance on how are we going to achieve the action items that were presented with the regional plan. So as a refresher, in order to better understand this TISMO plan, we need to look at what TISMO is. And it's basically a more holistic approach to transportation, where what TISMO does is it considers the end-to-end trip, regardless of mode, regardless of jurisdiction. And it really shifts the focus to map out and understand what the user of the transportation network experiences as they complete their trip from point A to point B. And this is where the holistic approach, comes in. It really wants us to look at it from a broader perspective, through using technology and metrics to assess and improve the trip as a whole. So this slide, just builds on the previous slide. It shows a comparison of how exactly TISMO wants to shift from the traditional way of transportation planning into an improved way of thinking about transportation planning. It's a cultural shift that we think is important because we can't really build our way out of congestion by adding lanes or working on standalone projects, especially as we consider our highly dense region in San Diego and the ever improving new technological solutions for transportation management that oftentimes do not require adding new lanes and stuff to improve the transportation network. So when we use TISMO, we want to make change. We want to, focus our look to a more data-driven approach of mapping out the environment and, seeing where are the improvements that we can make through a cross-jurisdictional approach, and therefore, shifting the pressure from a singular agency to a more working together environment on improving the transportation network. So the result is an improved efficiency and operations, which not only benefits the user of the transportation network, but also for the operators themselves, who are wearing multiple hats in many cases. And this way of thinking is especially important as we consider the regional plan vision, and specifically the 5 big moves that you all will help sharing. And And you're familiar with this diagram. TISMO really brings an understanding that after implementation, the performance evaluation continues. But for that, TISMO has to be present from the initial project development. It's not just happening in the planning phase. TISMO really wants to, start from the broader perspective, from the regional plan, then move into the CMCPs where we get the biggest bang for the buck with TISMO. And then, really going into the design phase, what are the requirements that we're building to identify how to integrate the system, how to test those systems. And really it's the ongoing operations and maintenance where TISMO really stands out from the traditional way, because, we can adjust based on the data and based on the performance metrics on how the TISMO operates. And therefore, engaging your benefits for the benefit of the traveler, and thereby building confidence and trust. And for that, when we created this, the TISMO plan with our consultant, we really made sure to map out the needs through surveys. And with this, Kimley and Horn helped us, and we created high-level priorities based on the survey conducted earlier this year, and therefore laid the foundation for the TISMO plan based on these responses. And as you can see, these needs are really all about sharing. It's sharing about the data, it's sharing a bit data about the incidents, road work, it's really focusing on the multi-jurisdictional approach to approach the congestion and the transportation network. So these needs were then translated into the guiding principles for the TISMO plan. And it really took an approach of people, processes, and tools, where people, the people part is linking employees, linking transportation planners to the customer experience, to better understand how the trip is being done, what are the fallbacks of the trip. The process is where, the TISMO really tries to bring a consistent process, eliminating outdated policies. And then the tools is where, TISMO really tries to standardize the tools to improve flow and provide the opportunity to constantly measure results and make adjustments. And this approach really needs, coordination with agencies and really focusing on the data itself. And in order to implement the TISMO plan on the regional level, we brought you this item to look at the first steps that are needed to lay the foundation for this. This is where we come in. Laying the foundation for TISMO begins with a regional shift. During the development of the regional TISMO plan, several surveys were conducted, and these surveys were then put into the TISMO plan to really, to really establish the a task force that will be like the framework and the governance to implement this framework. Considering the development of the TISMO work plan, this is a first necessary step in laying the foundation is shifting the governance and implementation. And through this, the TISMO plan and the implementation actions identified the operational and technological policies that will need to be shifted and changed to allow for data sharing, and also to develop cross-agency procedural guidelines for multimodal operations to really, focus on collaboration. And through this, we will also be able to look forward for the next West implementation, and also just looking on the broader perspective of the 5 big moves. This is a necessary shift. So once we establish the first step of the governance and implementation of the framework, we can then move into a suggestion of a TISMO task force that will focus on specific projects that needs multi-jurisdictional coordination, but also provides a forum for mutual technological innovation research. because technology continues to improve, you know, and the region needs a forum where we can apply those technological improvements in the region. So because of that, the first step is obviously the governance and implementation of the framework. Once we have that, the work plan set up, then we'll move into the TISMO task force. And for that, we also like to you know, ask for recommendations on who will be on the TISMO advisory task force, you know, membership participants, and also we would also like to get your input on, you know, how we proceed with the governance shift or the implementation of the framework.
Alex, I don't think we'll have time for more discussion, do we?
What we'll do is send the slide over and have any thoughts from members to share them. And the only thing I would like just to add to here, so this would be a perfect example where, you know, through this new restructuring, obviously the timing is strong, but we needed to kind of have this discussion, but this would be kind of an example where through this new restructuring, we would go off and develop a task force to kind of specifically talk about who wants to be involved in this TISMO. So we would open that up to whoever would like to participate in that. So it's more detail, more discussion, and not necessarily bring the larger group, but then we would provide kind of updates to that larger group.
Okay, Alex. With that, I will conclude this item. Thanks, Tim. I'll turn it over to Melanie.
Well, we do have Caltrans updates and announcements. We do have Rob Owen here to give those. I don't know if you have a extremely brief update you can give us in like a minute or two. So we do a hard 11 o'clock shut off time, right, Alex?
We do.
So just hopefully you can see that. And the things I wanted to highlight again is the inactive projects and the additional justifications. And the link is there for especially the ones that are over 2 years inactive. The other hard deadline that's coming up is the any authorizations for projects for this federal fiscal year. We've got the hard cutoff here at July 29th for those. Otherwise, you know, they won't be authorized until the fall. And you know what, I can leave it at that. You know, just my contact information is there if you have questions about the other announcements. You know, scroll down and see the, you know, all the new training that's coming out, especially Residential Engineers Academy fills up very fast, and it's all online. So thanks for letting me share that.
Thanks, Rob, and sorry for abbreviating your time this morning.
No
Our
problem.
next meeting would normally be in August. We usually go dark in August. Does anyone have any concerns with that and moving on to a September meeting? Not seeing any hands raised, no unmuting. So can we take that as a yes, Alex?
Okay, and no, that's fine. And then this will give me August to work on the working group restructuring elements. So we can come back with September and maybe early on share some information before the meeting.
Great. And with that, I guess we'll adjourn.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.